Hey everybody, it's Thursday.
It is Thursday, and welcome to this week's edition of the Night Bite.
I'm Josh.
And I'm Emily, and thanks for being here with us tonight.
Yeah.
So, Josh is just laughing at me. It's like always this moment before the show starts that like he pokes fun at me in something. Well, I probably deserve it. So.
Well, and we always get a little bit of time to talk with our guests before the show. And This one is particularly special because it's all about crappies. And so I'm just sitting over here laughing because Emily is just probably more excited than all of you guys out there. So.
That is true. You know, we love to be able to talk multi-species situations. That is super great.
Jay.
You know, all the different seasons, ice and open water. But it isn't often enough that we get to just sit and talk crappies. So that'll be great.
That's true.
With that, I guess, how has our fishing been?
Our fishing's been pretty good. I mean, it's always good, right? Because we're out fishing, but it's that time of year. It's transition. We get it twice a year, and fish kind of go whoop, and they're just all over the place, and it's fun to fish for them. Catching mass amounts of them, that's really hit or miss this time of year. But we have 30s in the forecast for lows. It's getting there.
Yeah, so that is really going to change things. We had on the water, we were on the river and a few lakes this past weekend, and we found kind of all over just under 65 degrees. It's not always that consistent across the bodies of water, but in this case it is. And with these cold temperatures at night, that is going to drop it. Turnover is going to come, which is a thing in itself. But, that fall bite is still coming, people. So
that's true, Jay.
I know everyone is really starting to, that's what I was going to say, is think about ice. Yeah, but we almost can't get ahead of ourselves and miss this really great bite that is about to go on now.
I love the fall bite.
Yeah. I'm laughing at the comments. I awkwardly stopped because I'm reading the comments, Jay, that you said, I'm Jay. Thanks for checking in with us. And tell us how your fishing is going and where you guys are at. Because, I do always love to hear about that. There's oftentimes trends in different areas or, across the weather zones. That's not really a thing. Do you know what I'm talking about though? Down in Illinois, they're in a different spot than we are in Minnesota. Might be a different spot, but sometimes it's all really similar. And so I'd love to gather that from the comments.
Mm-hmm. And every week on, Monday or Tuesday, depends on how long we get to fish, we put out a fishing report on YouTube, and it's also at the Outdoor News fishing website. So if you want to get it on YouTube before everybody else, just go subscribe and like there. Otherwise, come visit us on Thursdays.
Jay's saying walleyes are picking up and perch are biting. Well,
nice.
I'm looking for crappie for crappie. No, I'm looking for all the reports. That's good. There are some great perch that are biting right now in different parts of Wisconsin, and I know that you are not even in Wisconsin. You're in one of the
Dakotas. Hey, Paul, so thanks for tuning in on YouTube.
Cool. So with that, let's bring in our guest. I cannot wait any longer. So welcome to the show, Xtreme Crappie Angler, Karl.
Hey, Karl.
How are you guys? Doing good?
Yeah. Thanks for being here with us.
Oh, my pleasure, man. I'm looking forward to it. She came back from a road trip and stuff. And I remember we talked about this a while ago, and I made sure that we put all our stuff away and get settled in and stuff. And if you want to hear some pretty cool stories about some incredible big black crappie, I'm here.
That is what we are here for as well. Before we get to that, just in case there is anybody who maybe doesn't know who you are yet, can you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Sure. This is going into the 20th year of Xtreme Angler that I've produced all across Ontario and, help promote the whole province kind of thing across Canada as well. And then about 6 years ago, some association with some of the sponsors I've had in the deep south down towards Tennessee, Kentucky, and Illinois, and getting down to Mississippi, I got to see I call it the crappie culture and the dedication of guides, the people who just when you talk crappie, they just listen. Everyone knows bass and people do like walleye and they love muskie and stuff, but we talked about it earlier. When you mention the word crappie, their ears perk. If it could be a trade show, a parking lot, it doesn't matter where it is, it's about crappie. So I was intrigued, and as a producer, I was like, you know what? I would love to showcase not just these guides and the dedication that they put in to catch crappie. That is their livelihood. And I was just mind-boggling how much dedication they have. Can you imagine 5 to 6 days a week, sometimes 7 days a week during peak season, getting out there, having new people in your boat, new experiences, and sharing that crappie addiction, I call it, with new people. So long story short, we started the series way back when, and it caught on like wildfire. With sponsor partners and things, guides contacting me and saying, I'd love to do this kind of stuff, and we want to do some stuff with us. And after a while, it became no problem putting 13 episodes a year in 13 different locations and stuff. And then obviously I'm not even going to say what it was, this pandemic hit, right? So we had to diversify a bit, almost rebrand ourselves to more digital instead of the linear television, because we weren't allowed to go into the States. But as I said earlier, when we talked off air, that yesterday they actually announced on all the platforms on linear and digital, etc., that with double vaccines, they're going to allow Canadians back into the USA. So to all my friends who I haven't had a chance to respond yet, and all the private messages on Facebook and Instagram, guess what, guys? I'm coming back with my crew and film and promote all of your fantastic crappie areas, and then once again showcase on not just YouTube, not just Instagram and Facebook, but back on all our fantastic network partners who've been just waiting, making sure that I stick with them as well too, Sportsman Channel and stuff. And we've got some fantastic news. I don't have too many catfish out of the bag yet, but it's coming. Trust me when I tell you that when you see what the next version of our series is and how we're going to promote crappie and the people that are dedicated to this industry, not just the guides, but manufacturers, people like you at Crappie Junction, how you're passionate about crappie, we're going to showcase all that so people can pick up their phone, iPad, the computer, or just click on TV, and they're going to have more than enough crappie because the borders are open and we're coming back.
if everybody at home is not like this excited that they're shaking the pillows on the couch next to them, I would be here like clapping if I wasn't listening. But that really is so exciting because
I can guarantee you. Yes.
Yeah,
we'll
go ahead.
Be sharing a boat. Sharing a boat. My cameraman will be talking to you guys, and you're going to look back on this and say, wow. And I appreciate it 100%. We'll put that, help you, assist you, obviously with Crappie Junction and what you're doing, because believe me, people love the digital, but a lot of North Americans still pick up that little thing, that converter, click it on, or set a PVR. They still like to watch TV, and we've noticed that. We know that. So when we get out there, we're going to have some real fun and show the people what Josh can do, what Emily can do when the cameras are rolling as well.
Well, that is like really, really super exciting. And it looks like people at home are really excited too. And it is also exciting to me, to have somebody from Canada get excited about the waters here in the US, because there is really some truly great fishing.
Fantastic. Like I said, I got hooked. It took me a couple years to see those visits in late fall writers' conferences and see going down with all the writers and all the photographers and stuff. And yet there was a couple guys sometimes at the boat ramp with old John boats fishing for crappie, and the amount of attention they got from some of the big name bass pros that fish the elites and fish MLF, and wow, look at those crappie and stuff. And then being going to restaurants and gas stations and stuff, and obviously bait shops, and see the crappie culture. It was so addictive to me. This has to be shown. It has to be shown. Sure, people do things on YouTube and things, but to put it on TV, at the end of the day, end of my career, at least we can look back and say, hey, I'm not bragging and stuff, but this Canadian came way up from that North country into these beautiful southern states to help showcase what you guys already have. And then help the guides as well, help the community these bait shops and stuff, and it's just a snowball effect, really. It doesn't really matter if I came from Mars. When you think about it, I love to crappie fish, and my passion to share that with the guides and stuff, the friendships I've made, last a lifetime. But the new ones I'm looking forward to, especially the guides and different lodges and stuff that say, Karl, you got to come here, man. Show the people what we have as well. We love your series, what you did. We love the YouTube stuff now and Facebook, etc. But boy, you got to come here and experience what we have. Roll out the red carpet. And I tell you, you guys, especially in the United States, have treated me always like gold. And me, I'm looking forward to it big time.
Yeah, that's for sure. Oh man. So, now that you're going to be able to be coming back traveling around a bit, do you have locations or destinations that are first on your list?
Wow, that would be unfair. That would be unfair. You put me on the spot, Emily.
Oh no, it's okay. The backup question, Jay's asking, what's your favorite body of water?
Oh boy, Ontario or United States?
I'm interested in one of each.
Oh boy, in Ontario, wow, there's so much, like different regions. The regions that are, believe it or not, I'll tell you how big Ontario is. I'm about 3 hours north of the Big Smoke, which is Toronto. Everybody knows Toronto, right? Because of sports. Sports is always easy to relate to where you live, right? People know, oh, I've heard the Blue Jays. I've heard of this and that, right? Hockey and stuff. But from me, Ontario is so big, it would take me 22 hours to drive to Kenora, which is north, almost towards Minnesota, and I would still be in Ontario. And some of the finest crappie fishing, believe it or not, is in that area called Sunset Country. 22 hours north of my driveway. And yet you go all the way across to southern Ontario towards Lake Erie, all the Kawartha systems, places near about, I'd say 3 or 4 hours from Toronto. They're so diverse. These little things, I know they're an invasive species in some areas, but I mean, they're so self-sufficient. You don't need a lot of crappie in an area to populate and then not really take over. Like I was saying earlier, we have a lot of toothy critters like muskie and pike and stuff that help control the crappie populations, so they don't, take over, sort of say. But you know what? There's never a problem with them taking over, because just like me, I'm sure both of you and all your viewers who are listening and watching love crappie. And anytime you can take a good feed, respectfully take what's there, you're always going to do that, because that's what they're there. They're a put and take fishery. I believe in the trophies, releasing them for a future generation to experience what you do and your viewers do and what I do. But at the same time, that they're so prolific, and everyone knows that. You just ask all the guides they fish with. But I tell you, there's a lot of states, there's 52. I don't know how many have crappie, but I think I've fished probably 12, 14. So I got a lot of exploring to do. And when COVID started, I was down in Texas in January of 2020. And I think I like to say that we were probably the first show ever to film on Falcon Lake, which is, it joins Mexico and stuff, and it's got its reputation for whatever else. But I mean, I fished with a guy, Jared Lee, and we fished deep hardwood jig pole. And people were like, I can't believe you went all the way down to Texas, as far south as you could go, and you didn't go for those big, bad largemouth. You went for crappie. It shows my dedication for crappie. So there's a lot of places in between Ontario and Texas that I will be going to. But I mean, it's so hard to pick one area, because I fish with so many great guys, and there's so many different ways that they've opened up my eyes on how they fish for crappie: trolling, jigging, spider rigging, single poling, floats. The diversity, I think, is, for me, is the most appealing, because there's so much variety. It's not just a float and watching it go down, or a single pole. So I think for me, to say one body of water, I love the Mississippis, but I fish with the Duck Commander guys in Louisiana, all the guys in Illinois, Luke and Chopper and all them. It doesn't stop. Like, there's just so much opportunity. I could probably do this until I'm an old man and still not hit all the fantastic crappie in your beautiful country.
Yeah, the crappies are part of what makes it beautiful.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
Unfortunately, some people say that they didn't have a different name. right? You know what I mean? Like when they say crappie, people who don't know it, they're like, they look at you kind of different. Crappie. What are you saying, crappie? Like they don't have a name like a speckled trout, brook trout, pickerel, or largemouth bass. It's crappie. Whoa, crappie. Maybe that's what they get the reputation. Who knows? You know what I mean? But I love them. I think all your viewers and stuff love them. They're great.
Well, see, that's the thing, as much as I love crappies and I want everybody else to love crappies, it's like, part of why I love the fall is because half the people put their boats away and the waters are open, so I love running into bass anglers.
Yes, because you know what? Depending on where you are, you guys are more in the north too, aren't you? In Wisconsin?
Yeah.
Yeah. So, but when you think how in the deep south, it's January, February, March, they're already pounding crappies. Their peak of the pre-spawn and spawn, they're catching just absolute giants. And here we are still breaking through ice, and waiting for that spring thaw so the fish get shallow and get easy and school up and stuff. So there's a little bit of waiting. And I had to do that now for 2 years, but not anymore. I'm looking forward to it. Now I look forward to Christmas, obviously, because it's, a family festive time. But once Christmas is over, this guy here is thinking about January and those big crappie.
That's actually funny because that's the same time of year I catch some of my big crappies, but they happen to be like 2 inches under the top of the ice.
Yes. Yes. And I could do that here. I've had invitations and stuff. I've talked about it in the fall with some of the guys I fish with, hardcore, great ice fishing anglers. But as soon as I saw that yesterday, boy, all of a sudden my phone started to go off and people are like, did you see that? That the US is opening up and you have your shots. I got, oh yeah, I have had my shots from way back when it was available. So I'm just primed, ready to go. I talked to my camera guys and crew and they're like, really? Do you have a list of where potentially? I just open up my Facebook, my private messages, and go scroll down. They're like, are you kidding me? Nope. These are all invites from credible crappie fishermen, regions, tourist bureaus, you name it. They're like, hey, when it's available and you can come on. So needless to say, between now and then, I'm going to be pretty busy scheduling it.
Yeah, that's actually fabulous because, I love that theory of wherever you go, you can find crappies. But I'm also really intrigued by your idea. Like, I do wonder how many of the states actually have crappies in them now. Like, that's like a bucket list thing. Visit every state that has a crappie in it.
Well, and that brings up
No
a good
kidding.
point is that as much as the South is known for crappie, the East Coast is a hidden gem. So if you want to talk about, like Lake Cascade is to perch, like Pennsylvania, Upper New York, Massachusetts, those places have some big fish.
Yeah, I've got invitations, California's. Obviously, everyone knows the Floridas are good, but I had no idea that Arizona has the amount of numbers and size that they do. No idea. Totally ignorant to it, But now I'm looking at all the forums and stuff like, wow, these crappie, they're just spread across the whole states, and it doesn't matter about temperature and stuff, because they can survive in minus 20 temperatures in Ontario and in Minnesota and stuff. And if they can survive all the way down to Mississippi's and Florida, just a matter of them being introduced. And now with Arizona and stuff, I can only imagine, I can't really relate the excitement I have or show when I think that, okay, what am I going to do when I can first get down there? And that's an interesting question when you're saying, like, where will you go first? I don't know yet. I might have to get the dice out and play craps. Okay, that one. To be honest, let's do those so we don't, repeat where we've already been. But I'm going to lie I'll be lying if I wasn't honest and said I can't wait to get back to Louisiana, Mississippi, etc. All those lakes and maybe catch a 3+ pounder. My biggest still is I think 2.7 something, but it doesn't matter. It's just the amount of big crappie that you see all winter on the internet and stuff, and just think, wow. So that wow is going to change into get the net.
Yeah.
Yeah, man. Looking forward to it.
It's interesting to hear you talk about Arizona because isn't that where Lake Havasu is? And talk about some big fish. That's well, talk about bucket list. Those shell crackers in that lake, man. If they have
Oh,
crappies just half as nice as those, oh,
yes. I've seen years ago when I fished on Santee Cooper Reservoir for the crappie, and I was in a resort there, and they had some mounted shell crackers, and I thought it looked like something like Jurassic Park. I was like, is this real or is this exaggerated stuff? They're like, no, they're real shell crackers. And I mean, my mind just went off. I know bluegills can get pretty big in the south, but when I seen shell crackers, and we catch big bluegills up here that are, I don't know, 11 inches, that's pretty good, 12-inch, and how they fight, I couldn't imagine these 2+ pound shell crackers and how beautiful they are. Like, really. But to showcase that stuff too, I think it opened up a lot of people's ideas thinking, wow, what are we missing? Let's get out there, go chase some shell crackers too.
yeah. Yeah, that is for sure. Oh my gosh.
Mhm.
That makes me excited. But that's a good thing because tourism, has been lacking for these last, few years. And so that's a really great thing for people to be excited about.
100%. Like in Ontario's got all these different things going on right now. The planning that they've had, and I'm sure all your U.S. Tourist regions have as well. The post, I'm not going to say the word either, post-pandemic recovery. How are we going to get people to come back to our place? Come back to this place. We have great fishing, we have great lakes, and we have everything else. So I think that the angler and the visiting vacationing angler is going to benefit because they're going to be great rates on places to stay. The guides are always available. There'll be package deals, you name it. And we'll probably have all kinds of things on the internet, on Instagram and stuff too, to try to inspire us to say, come here, visit, spend your dollars here to get your economy and ours, obviously, bump started once again.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm looking forward to that. With that, though, I guess, how has fishing been lately for you?
Well, just like I said, I came back from a road trip, and it's hit and miss sometimes in the fall up here because sometimes we hit it when the temperatures have been cold and the crappie are off the charts. The lakes turn over, which they call the thermocline is all different. It's almost the same all the way through, so you can catch them any which way you want. But the last couple of years, it's been hit and miss. Well, this year, because it didn't turn over yet, wasn't cold yet, so they're almost in that late fall pattern. So we had to work around a little bit in the middle of the day. We couldn't reuse the floats and things like that because the fish were sitting. And this time of year, the lakes we fish, it's mostly the deep weed that they're sitting on. But once I call it the vampire hour, that as soon as the sun hits the tree line, it's almost like a switch. And I don't know how nature can be so in tune that someone flicks a switch and all the way across a weed line that's like 200 yards wide. I go with different boats and different friends and stuff. There's a bunch of us that go. And everybody along that weed line, as soon as that sun hits past the tree line, those fish pull out of that heavy weed, and it looks like something out of National Geographic. If you have to see it, when we show this on TV, which we have, the amount of seagulls that are eating injured bait fish from the crappie that come up and pushing, every which way you cast, 360 around the boat on horizontal presentations, you're catching crappie for about 45 minutes to 1 hour. It is unreal, like nothing you've seen in your entire life. Unreal. And those same fish, they sit in that weed. So during the daytimes, no reason to get up early. We have a big breakfast. We enjoy our camaraderie with our buddies. Then we say, okay, what time is it? It's single pole time. 10, 11-foot B&Ms. We get out there, find those big pockets in that 8, 10-foot heavy milfoil and cabbage, put the jig down, bang, right to your wrist. I'm sure you both did it. But when you do it when there's nobody around, it was just us, and you look all around, all these bays are full of the same weed, you get an idea of how many crappie are really in those weeds, especially in the evening when they bite. But I mean, we had 5 days of the same thing, Groundhog Day, over and over. We had to find ways to use different baits just to change it up. But I mean, unbelievable, just unbelievable how many crappie are in our Ontario lakes as well. It was a fantastic road trip. We got so much content for TV, for YouTube and stuff. So I'll be busy for the next little while too, looking through things and looking through those memories and stuff and get inspired to wait till I come back down your way again.
Yeah, that's for sure. So that's a really great situation where they're biting so much like that. But when you set up, you don't know what's going to be like that. So what is your go-to bait? Do you use live bait or plastics, or what does that look like for you?
Never used live bait. You believe it? I've never used live bait in my entire life in Ontario, not once. The soft plastics and stuff, because I really believe, and I believe with a lot of the guys I fish with, it's more of the presentation and location, just like bass fishing. If you can present your bait the right way, and I'm not going to kid anybody, all the people who do use live bait do know that when they're spider rigging and things, it's obviously going to outfish artificials. But I'm almost fishing the same way when I use single pole and stuff, whether it be spring, when they're hunker down near nests and things too. It's about the location, and they're ready just to smack baits and stuff. And I practice a lot of catch and release. People see that on the shows and stuff too, and on my YouTube. But it's about presenting the bait right. Don't let them see you first, or if it's in a deep weed, they're just oblivious. They're just like largemouth. So all they see is that fluorocarbon line with a leader, etc. Putting it down. All they see is that little bait and the little tail just shaking. It's just dump. It's a crappy thing. I relate to them almost like cats. They see something, they gotta come see what it is. Brighter the color, I better go see what that is. And then that I call it the seagull factor. They never hang out by themselves, so they got all their buddies around. So somebody starts eating, they're like seagulls when you throw popcorn on the beach. All of a sudden, all the crap, you're like, huh? What happened? You know what I mean? It's like you catch one, bang, the school's on. But it's finding them. That's for me, I love the challenge of finding them. And these days, with the advancement of electronics and things, with single polling and different things, where guys doing that with different sonar companies and stuff, just the advancement in technology, it's made it all easier for a lot of guys who do use artificials. But I mean, for me, I use a fin spin by Crappie Magnet. It's got the little lead head with the little blade underneath. They got a new bait called the Dancer. It's a small little streamlined bait with a little kicking tail, a little thumping tail. And we throw it on straight braid, 8-pound braid, a 5-foot pole, whip it as far as you can, 1/8 ounce little bait, keep it as high in the water column as you can. Because, I mean, when you see what we did this year, we filmed it at the peak time when he's crappie, or some of us were still using a float. The float is getting knocked out of the water more than getting bit. They are so psychotic. One of our guys was actually tied up. He was using the same poppers that we use for large and smallmouth bass, and he destroyed way more big fish than us. Topwater popper, crappie. Have you ever seen it? Like, they're suicidal when that happens. It was just phenomenal. So it's just something else when you can throw that horizontal bait, slow roll it, bang, miss a fish, and you just keep rolling, bang, bang. And sometimes, I mean, right by the boat, like I use a bright chartreuse bait. Right by the boat, I'm looking down, I see the chartreuse bait, it disappears, and I wonder why it disappears. That's the crappie mouth. Whoa, whoa! Like, all of us, there was a bunch of us, we were giggling like little kids. Like little kids. I can't believe how crazy it is. And then they shut down, and it's time for us to go back and enjoy our dinner and barbecue and our road trip stuff. But the mornings again, but I mean, just that peak, it's so, I think, gratifying, and I wish everybody could see it. When they do see these shows that we filmed, they'll get an idea of how many crappie potentially can be in one bay. One bay. That's all we fished. One bay for 5 days. How many crappie? You can see that with your own eyes. See, like, this is unbelievable. And they're all crappie. No matter which way you cast around the boat, you're getting hit, getting bit. It's unreal. A lot of fun.
That's really lucky because that's not how it's always like at my house.
No, it's not for us either. We go sometimes and catch, 4 or 5 decent fish, and they stump us. That's where they are. Sometimes crappie, we get on a main lake basin, bite in the spring. Smaller lakes we fish, they're 20 feet deep on the bottom, and for whatever reason, you're catching 4 or 5 big ones in a row. You look down, where did they go? You start moving around a little bit. You got your marker buoys. You know where you started. You got your waypoints, and yet you are traveling all over the place. Where did they go? They didn't disappear. They just disperse for whatever reason. You know what I mean? And it's just that's to me the greatest mystery of nature. Like, where do they all know to do that at the same time? How do they know that? You know what I mean? Is it in their DNA? There's somebody at the top of like geese flying. There's someone at the front. Okay, guys, time to move. These guys are above us, catching us. They don't know that. You know, their brains are the size of a pea, but it's just in nature. So trying to outsmart nature, for me, that's 50% of the game. Figuring it out, what bait, what color, what speed, and then that can change in half an hour because the boats that are 100 yards from you, they're catching, you're not catching anymore. So I think that's all part of it. The competitive edge that people have. We all love catching them when they're biting fast, but when they're not biting fast, it just shows on the tournament tours that you have in the United States, the crappie tours, of how dedicated those guys are and how good they are and diverse, their versatility, how they adapt. They just can catch crappie no matter where you have tournaments. There's always going to be a few guys, and usually more than one, that'll figure it out. So when people all come in and say, we weren't biting today, and then Bob and Bill and Joe have these big bags of crappie, you know they're biting somewhere and they figured it out. So for me, it's always like, that's the challenge. Figuring it out. Once I do, then it's all like, okay, got another one, you know?
Yeah, I don't mean to go back even kind of to the beginning of what you were saying there, but that is a few things that I think a lot about. When crappie, I guess you were talking about like crappies communicating with each other. Is that possible? I don't know. But one of the ways that I think they kind of do is, well, and I think about this a lot because I'm, a catch and release angler. I keep so little of my fish, like 1% maybe in the year. But I throw back a whole ton of them. And one of the things that you hear a lot, especially in ice fishing, is that you don't throw it down the hole that you caught it from, because those fish, they go back down and they do this like funny shake thing. And I do think that's one of the ways they communicate. And I do think that's one of the things that kind of scares fish off. But I have had what you were talking about happen, where you catch a few and then they're like gone forever.
Yes. And you know what? It's a very popular thing with two smallmouth bass as well. Smallmouth bass anglers have that same, I guess I'm not going to call it an old wives' tale because it does happen. I think we'll never know for sure because we're not a fish. And all the scientists in the world and biologists can say, well, this is what they really do. How do you know they do that? How do you know? Did a crappie actually tell you? No. So I think they exude something, whether it be vibe, something they exude of being caught, and we probably shouldn't be here, guys. You know what I mean? Like it's pretty as simple as that maybe, because I try not to overanalyze things, but I know what you're saying about if you're fishing, ice fishing, and they're directly below you and stuff. I think I would be weary as well too, letting them go right after you catch them like that. Because remember this one thing: I'm not a big hunter, but I have a lot of friends who are really good hunters and stuff. Anything in the wild, including fish, know one thing: they know danger. They know it, smell it, sense it, see it. They know it. And crappie, big crappie, they don't get big just by waking up. Oh, you know what? I think I'm going to get big. I'm going to become 3 pounds. They become 3 pounds because of certain things or characteristics. Smart, not getting caught, not biting the hook. But again, I don't give them too much credit, but I do know that trophy animals and fish and stuff, they get that way for a reason, because they're not totally stupid. They just know fear. And if something is not right, what's the best thing you do? Fight or flight. And I think that when they sense something that's not right, flight. They take off.
Yeah, that's
my theory.
Yeah, I like that a lot. And I love hearing the theory about, fish get big for a reason. And another kind of ice fishing connection, but one of our spots that we go to all the time, and it gets hit pretty hard, and once in a while for panfish, mostly for pike and stuff. But the people who do go panfish, they, fish mid water column, and I don't know, maybe they get some meters or maybe a few decent ones or whatever, but we find ourselves fishing very, very shallow compared to what those people are. And we're finding a much different type of fish. And, that in itself, you make a little change. You're talking about kind of outsmarting nature, or kind of thinking beyond that. And that's a funny point, just a good connection there.
Yes, 100%. And I think that's the appeal too, because, maybe I don't hunt as much, but I still have that competitive edge. That if I ever had the time, because obviously I don't have the time because of scheduling and editing and doing shows and shooting shows, it would just be, I couldn't put the effort in that I want to. But at the same time, knowing that, okay, I'm going to be going to all these different areas with these great fishermen, who sometimes they pre-fish before we get there and stuff. And I can't even tell you how many times these guys are really, really good. And I get down there and they're like, you won't believe it. I'm like, I do believe it. I saw the pictures you sent me where the crappie are just off. They're off. Whether it be the curse of the camera, who knows what it is, but we're diversify, take some time, look around, use their experience and stuff. And sometimes the honesty is the best way. We go to other lakes close by. Because sometimes if a lake is off for whatever reason when it was on, because I don't believe that fish can eat all the time, all day long. They just can't. They can't. Otherwise, they'd weigh 10 pounds, right? So there's different periods, different parts of the lake, different feeding zones, etc. And to find those, that's part of the puzzle too. Find where they're biting, how to catch them at different times of the day on the same body of water. And sometimes you just got to, hey, throw your hands in the air. You know what? It's not going to happen here. We got 2-3 days here. We got to put a show together. How about we just be honest? Let's go to a different lake in the same area. And all of a sudden it's bang, 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 catching all these crappie and everyone's having a good time. And then, a week later, the guy sent me pictures. Guess what? The lake's back on again. Oh, that's great. And that's just crappie fishing. So we have to adapt sometimes, and show the viewer that this is what we had to do. And I think they like our honesty, showing this is what we had to do to put shows together.
I always appreciate that honesty because that is something that Josh and I talk about back and forth a lot is, how long do you fish a lake? If you're not catching fish, there's fish there. How long do you stay before you go? And honestly, we have almost never moved except for one time where I insisted on it, which was kind of funny, but it's something that we've talked about ever since. And so to hear that other people are having that experiences, honestly, at least just makes me feel better.
Oh, for sure. You know what? We all have the same common bond, right? Fishing and with crappie fishing, catching panfish, shell crackers and big jumbo perch and things like that. We share that same passion. We might not fish the same way. We might not be as competitive and stuff, but there's nothing wrong with it. And that's what I said about crappie earlier. The diversity from you can teach a child how to fish, with a cane pole, watching the little cork sitting on a 5-gallon pail. Or you can watch the guys in the $150,000 boats with their electronics and things are very focused, and everything in between. Every different demographic, every color of person. It doesn't matter. Crappie don't care, and that's the greatest thing about crappie. Like you go on a river or stream and stuff. How many different people do you see? And what are they doing? They're not arguing. They're not fighting and stuff. They're enjoying crappie fishing. They're doing that same bond, and no one looks at people's color, their race, their language. It's just, I'm not going to get all sentimental and stuff because I'm not going to run for president. You guys already have a president. You already had presidents. I can't even run for president, but okay, fantastic. Maybe I'll challenge Dwayne Johnson a lot, and one day I'll try to become the president. But you know what I mean. But it's crappie fishing. It has no prejudice. And sometimes I fish with so many different people and stuff, and the guys who watch our shows, who send messages and stuff like that, and I'm like, I probably never would associate with these people in my entire life, and they don't care what I am, where I come from, doesn't matter. Just, what, you're sharing some crappie information that I can use to help me catch crappie, that can help them. Hey, you know what, at the end of the day, I just feel great about it. It's fantastic. I'm achieving my goals, I'm living my life, career, fishing for crappie, chasing them and stuff, and showcasing it, and to see all the different people in different states, like I said, of all different colors, sizes, and shapes. They don't care. Just, hey, I want to catch crappie. You want to show me how to do it? You want to show me where to go, what to use, and what guides to go with? I'll watch your show. So we've been pretty successful that way.
Yeah, that is absolutely true. When you can pack so much good information in there and crappies, it's like, what more do you want?
Yes. Like sometimes we could do 2-hour shows, but it'd be like War and Peace. Who wants to sit for 2 hours and watch it? That's why the digital media is good. You can do a bit more stuff because some of the TV networks and stuff that were with it, they're used to fast-paced. Today's society is all fast-paced. The attention span, unless you can keep people's attentions and stuff, they're off looking somewhere else. 5-6 minutes. I've had enough. So that's what digital media does help. So people who do want to sit in front of their smart TV or their computer and watch an hour show on how to jig pole, they'll watch it. But on TV, you have that 22 to 25 minutes of where are you? What are you using? How do I get there? What did you use? Show us some crappie. Okay, bye. Next show. That's just the way TV is. It'll never change either, you know. So the power of the internet has helped out a lot, so people can have an opportunity to see more in depth. You know, you just got to type in crappie fishing, whatever it is, on YouTube, and watch how many different videos come up of guys sharing and girls the passion of how I catch them, and maybe this will help you catch them. So it's great. It's just something else that helps, like, guys like us who are on TV, who provide some entertainment value when you're sitting down watching the show. When you want a bit more information and stuff, you know, you're going to go to my website, you're going to click my Facebook, my Instagram. Wow, YouTube, look at all the videos he's got. They'll sit there and they can enjoy and just binge watch as much as they want, you know. So in essence, you know, it's great.
Yeah, that is actually really great. And actually, I think very true about the different viewers of different media these days. It is sometimes hard to keep up with people. So to our loyal viewers, we appreciate you. So with that, actually, we have a question from Jay, and it's a good one. So a lot of times when people will toss a bobber out there, people will think that you leave it sit. But in a lot of cases, that's not the case. You do some action or some twitching. So can you tell us a little bit about how you do bobbers?
Yeah, you know what? Because I use a lot of slip floats. I never use a spring float. You know, I think with even when you're teaching children and stuff, you should probably teach them the right way with a slip float so you can keep changing the depth. And now, you know the old saying about crappie, oh, love to feed up. Yeah, they do. But trust me when I tell you, for years I've had a big black crappie in my aquarium, big aquariums in the garage. I don't have one now, but I always had. And I can't tell you how many times I put dead minnows, whatever like that. They're so trained DNA to turn sideways their body and pick anything off the bottom as well too. So they do eat going down. So using a slip float, and depending on the water conditions too, if it's wavy and choppy, it's imparting its own action. Using live bait, I don't think you have to use a lot of stuff, because if you hook the minnow right, those crappie are going to come up and they're just going to inhale. Like, you know, we all know it. There's that thump. The float goes sideways or the float lays down. Then it goes the traditional slowly down. But when I'm using artificial baits, I make sure I impart a little bit of action in the baits I use, like the crappie magnet and slab magnet and stuff, just a little bit to get their attention. Because I really believe crappie, once you get their attention and the right color and stuff too, half the game is over. They'll eat it. They'll eat it. Sizes sometimes of baits, depending on what their mood, because I try not to generalize too much on spring it's small, fall it's bigger, summer's bigger. No, because it's always changing. So, you know, having a stubborn, I'm going to call it stubborn mindset of like, this is the way I catch them and this is the way I used to catch them, you're going to limit yourself from catching crappie, especially with the slip float. But if you keep an open mind and look on the internet when you're at places and say, you know what, I've got these colors of baits I've never used, but they look so good in the store, and you put them on and you change and you start catching fish, I guarantee the feeling you're going to get is like, wow, you know, like you unlock like this little secret thing, like, I had no idea they eat that color and stuff. So again, it's all about crappie fishing, being versatile, adapting and stuff. So when I'm fishing a float, depending on what it is, it could be 6 inches of water to 16 feet. You know, I set that float. I make sure it's always as vertical as possible and always have just as much out of the water depending on the wave action and stuff. But anything happens to that float, I'm always setting hook. I don't care what it is. If it goes sideways, it twitches a little bit, or if it's drifting down and it stops, there's a reason why it stops. Something's grabbed that bait, set the hook. You never go wrong by setting the hook, especially when you're float fishing.
Yeah, that's absolutely true. Man, because a lot of times I do find that we get the up bite. But then, you know, with the crazy crappie, and they bring it right back down. So, but my favorite is when you do see all of a sudden your bobber just swim sideways. It's like, no, you should not be able to do that.
With that nice traditional on a 45-degree angle. And you know what usually happens? This is the honest truth. It usually happens when you're doing this. And your buddy's like, your float, what? And that excitement, like, where's my float? Set the hook, right? And you've been watching that for what, 5 minutes straight? The minute you do that, that's when they bite. So true.
There's a phrase in our boat that's very popular, and it's watch your own bobber.
So true. So true. because it's true, isn't it? Even if you have 2, 3 people in the boat, you tend to look over and stuff like that. If you pay more attention to your own presentation, you probably catch more crappie.
Yeah. That's so funny.
Mhm.
I do always laugh at myself too because you had mentioned, how much action the wind will give your bobber. And that is a really great point. When you are using plastic, sometimes it gives its great action. But just remember then, as an angler, how much action those waves are giving it because inevitably that wind will change. And how often do you not realize how much calmer it is? You're like, those darn fish are not biting now. And it's like, well, think of the action difference from, the wind to that calm situation. Maybe try to simulate that. So Jay was talking about, popping it and snapping it and pausing. And that's definitely one of the ways to go about that.
Yeah, for sure. And that's again paying attention to the conditions, how things change. You know what I mean? Or what if it is still calm, and you're like, the crappie is not biting today. If you only knew, really, if you're in a popular area that you know the crappie are there, and you can't single pull them because you're casting from the bank or from shore or whatever on a stationary boat, you know they're there. But the minute that breeze picks up and that little bait starts to move a little bit, all of a sudden the floats are going down. You know what I mean? It's just like, wow, it didn't just the switch. Something about the action and crappie, you know how they're like the reaction fish. They love something that's moving, something that gets their attention. So sometimes, you impart a little bit of action, but sometimes that little tail flicking can make a crappie watch or eat. So I think it's for your viewers and people watching, if I had to say one thing about flow fishing, is pay attention to the surroundings. How conditions change and stuff. If it's really calm and you have to add a bit more action and stuff, if all of a sudden the bite picks up, see why. And if it gets calm again and like, oh, they stop biting again, hey, add a little bit more action and stuff, or maybe go a little deeper, go a little shallower like you guys do. It's just changing it up until, again, that float starts to go down.
Yeah, that's absolutely true. That makes me really excited about the weekend because we're going to be on the water. Yahoo! Oh
Yes.
my gosh. So this is normally the part of the show I ask about what's coming up for you. I kind of already hinted at that. That's kind of vague. But do you have plans coming up that you know of?
Oh yeah, like we'll probably be out. If not this weekend, I'm picking up another different vehicle again, and we've been working on something for about 9 months. We thought this pandemic thing is we had enough of it. When we come back to TV, we need to really jumpstart it, do something really unique and special. So, with the crew we have, we put some think tanks together, sat around and thought, how are we going to really make this cool? How do we make crappie cool again? The same way we introduced it when we did it way back when. So, I'm not thanking the pandemic, but it gave us some opportunity to take a breather, and look at how we can really jumpstart it again. Jumpstart it again so people start like, you got to see this series. Remember that series that was called blah, blah, blah? Well, check out this, man. It's the same kind of guys, but the places they're at, but the in-depth information they're giving, the cooking of different recipes of how to catch crappie, making it real simple too. So it's not just for people with expensive boats and stuff. It's for everybody. So that's what we got worked on. And I can't even tell you how excited we are. And we've got probably 2 or 3 more shoots in Ontario for some of the biggest black crappie you've seen. I kid you not when I tell you, like, honest fish that are mid 15s to 16-inch big black crappie. Big fish. But we need those cold nights, like Josh was saying. The cold nights are going to inspire them. Gang up, get deeper, suspend, or whatever. But we've got our locations that we'll be there. We're just waiting for those cold nights.
Oh my gosh, that's so exciting. So then for people who are so interested in seeing that, there's a lot of different ways to view your content. Can you give us some of those options?
Oh yeah, if you go on to Xtreme Crappie Angler with the X with no E at the front, Xtreme Crappie Angler on Facebook, Instagram, they're the mainstays. And then if you go to our website, which is www.fishxtreme.com, there's links to all the buttons are there. It goes right to our YouTube channel, and there's 1,200 videos there. And you'd be surprised, but you'll know which ones have the most views when you see crappie. When there's crappie, it just destroy everything else. Like something about that thing, I don't know. People just love it. They can't get enough. So to see what we're doing that way, Facebook and Instagram is probably the best way. When we start putting out teasers, sneak peeks of what we have. We've been putting out the knowledge of where we just started our editing. And I think our first show is a show where we probably caught some of the biggest crappie probably since we ever picked up a camera and filmed this past spring. That one show, I think when that one comes out and people see that, like, are you kidding me? Did you see the size of those? Because sometimes we all know, people, whether it be envy or whatever, they see a photo on Instagram or Facebook and, the thing like, hold it out farther, Photoshop. It's never Photoshop, because when you see it on video, there's no excuses. When you see how big those things are, the trajectory and the size and stuff. And again, 99% of those fish are all released, just so they can keep reproducing. But the opportunity for us to catch some of those fish from a rebound year again, it's going to be amazing, man. Amazing.
That is really amazing. And I'm really excited, honestly, to be watching that and be checking that out. So I cannot wait for that. With that, thanks for.
And then, like I said, we're going to hook up.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, no, I appreciate it. I appreciate inviting us up, sharing crappie information. Really appreciate it.
Yeah. And to our viewers at home, thank you guys for being here as well, because that is always fun to answer your questions and hear your conversations along the way. And gosh, we had a ton of fun tonight, and we could talk crappies forever, but I guess we're going to have to wait until next week at this point. So
Yeah.
with that, we'll see you on next week's edition of The Night Bite.
Night, everybody.